Palou wins again. The Magic stunningly take Game 1 in Detroit. The Reds and Cubs can't be stopped. And so much more coming up today on the Central Indiana Sports Report's 10-minute daily report. 10 minutes tailored specifically for Central Indiana sports fans. I'm your host, Greg Mengelt, and I love Central Indiana sports. Coming up today, Monday, April 2026, we have IndyCar, NBA and NHL playoffs, the Ignite in the MLV's Match of the Year in Fishers, and no one is losing in the NL Central. Plus, Fever Camp opened on Sunday, and we talked about it on this week's Fever Report with John Robertson and Michelle Garman. Talking about the top storylines heading into the season. It obviously starts with Caitlin Clark's return and the Fever's pursuit of their first championship in 14 years. Also, a reminder, this show for the next 6 weeks at least will air first thing in the morning on weekends and at 3 in the afternoon on weekdays. The plan is, starting in June, first thing when you wake up every single day. Circumstances have to change for me for that to happen. Thanks so much for joining us. Your 10-minute update begins now. A late caution flag for debris saw Felix Rosenqvist dominating day go away Sunday, 59 of 90 laps into the 42nd Grand Prix of Long Beach. And three-time reigning series champion Alex Palou was there to take advantage of it for his fourth win of the year in 5 races, but his first at Long Beach. On our reaction podcast Sunday night on the Central Indiana Sports Report Network, it was hotly debated. Did Rosenqvist have the win in hand for Meyer Shank Racing? Did the yellow cost him the race? Or was Palou 2.5 seconds behind just waiting for his time to strike? It doesn't really matter. In the end, the Alex Palou legend continues to grow. That's 11 wins in the last 24 IndyCar races for Palou. Rosenqvist finished second. Scott Dixon, his best finish of the year, in third. Kyle Kirkwood finished fourth and Pato O'Ward was fifth. Still a close race at the top of the driver standings. Palou leads Kirkwood by 17 points. Please go check out the full recap and reaction podcast with Elijah Poe, Dave Chanley, and Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call leader sports editor Michelle Garman that we released late Sunday. The series now moves to Indy, but it's another 20 days before the next race on the road course at IMS May 9th. There is an Indy 500 test on April 28 and 29 for potential IndyCar 500 entrants. By the way, it was announced today that Jacob Abel is the 32nd entrant, so just waiting for one more to have a full field. Abel will likely be at the test at IMS on April 28 and 29 for every potential Indy 500 entrant. We'll have a report on those days with our IndyCar guys, Elijah Poe and Dave Chanley. And, of course, we'll have you covered the entire month of May on the IndyCar Report and on this show as well. 7 of the 8 home teams and favorites won Game 1s in the NBA playoffs this weekend, but the Orlando Magic stunned the Detroit Pistons in Game 1 of that series, leading start to finish in a 112-101 victory. But I think this was just a matter of the Pistons being rusty. They never looked quite right. They better get it turned around by Wednesday night, though, because if they lose Game 2, they are in big trouble. In the other East Game 1 Sunday, the Celtics didn't leave any cracks open for the Sixers. They jumped out to a 22-9 lead, and it was pretty much over from there. Never a fight. Philly was 4 for 23 from behind the three-point arc, but even if they'd had a good shooting night, I can't see them winning even a single game in this series. Early on, Phoenix looked plucky. Devin Booker looked good, and Jalen Green looked like he might have an advantage against the Thunder. And just about the time the words, "Oh, maybe this series might be more interesting than I thought," then the Thunder went on a 17-2 run midway through the first quarter in a series that's obviously a complete mismatch and will likely be over in 4 games. The Thunder are the second team ever to win their first playoff game by 30 or more points in back-to-back years since the Lakers did it in 1985 and 1986. They are definitely the favorites to win it all again. The Spurs also look like serious contenders in spite of their youth. Victor Wembanyama is an unfair advantage, is probably the most unfair advantage any team has had in the NBA since Shaquille O'Neal. He had 35 points with an absolute arsenal of offensive skills that are unguardable. And the entire starting lineup for the Spurs is young and athletic and skilled, and that team is going to be so good for so long. But I think Portland's going to make this series interesting. They made game one interesting most of the way before the Spurs dominated the fourth quarter. There are 3 games tonight, and it starts with Cavaliers-Raptors game 2 at 7 on NBC Sports Network. Then things get really good. On NBC at 8, it's the Knicks and Hawks at MSG. The Knicks looked great in game 1, but don't count out these Hawks. That's followed by Nuggets-Wolves in game 2, same story. The Nuggets looked incredible in game 1, but the Wolves are super dangerous. Man, those are the 2 best series in the entire first round. Back-to-back tonight, cannot wait. There were 4 Stanley Cup playoff games Sunday, 3 of them determined by 1 goal, the other by 2. Reigning East champion Montreal beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, also familiar with winning championships, 4-3 in overtime in the game of the day on Sunday, and the most compelling series of the entire first round. Also in the East, the Sabres beat the Bruins 4-3, and both favorites won in the West. The Avalanche, who are probably the favorites to win the whole thing, beat the Kings 2-1, and the Knights beat the Utah Mammoth 4-2 in the Mammoths' first playoff game ever. 4 more games tonight. 3 of them are game 2. The Ducks and Oilers get underway at 10 on ESPN. That follows Flyers-Penguins game 2 at 7 on ESPN. The Penguins trying to avoid losing the first 2 games at home. The Hurricanes looking for a 2-0 lead against Ottawa at 7:30 on ESPN2. And the Wild and Stars on ESPN at 9:30. Minnesota won game 1 in Dallas. The Reds completed their sweep of the Twins with a come-from-behind 7-4 win in 10 innings on Sunday. TJ Friedl cleared the bases with a double to give the Reds the lead in the 9th. And even when one of the game's best closers couldn't hold the lead in the 9th, the Reds scored 3 more times in the 10th. They're now 14-8 despite scoring more runs than only 3 other teams in the National League. The Reds start a 3-game series tonight against the 12-9 Tampa Bay Rays in Tampa at 6:40. The Cardinals are now in second after a 7-5 win over Houston. The Pirates are in third after beating the Rays 6-4. And the Cubs and Brewers are tied in fourth, but just a game and a half back of the Reds in first. All 5 NL Central teams are at least 3 games over 500. The Cubs scored a run in the 9th on Michael Conforto's RBI double and won it in the 10th on a Nico Horner sacrifice fly to sweep the Mets and hand the Mets their 11th straight loss. The Cubs have won 5 in a row and play the first of 4 against the Phillies at Wrigley, also at 6:40 tonight. We'll be talking about the NL Central and all of Major League Baseball this week on the Major League Baseball Report with Paul Tipton and Will Rutherford. And I think we're going to have a special guest this week. We'll have that for you on Tuesday morning this week. Some news and notes. Connor Simmons is leaving Cascade after leading the Cadets to their first football state championship in the fall. Now that's a hot commodity. It'll be interesting to see where he lands. Center Grove has named Trent Moorhead its next basketball coach, pending board approval. Moorhead led Hauser to 79 wins in 4 years and back-to-back semi-state championships. Terry Morton, the IU women's program, has landed shooting guard Kinsey Hare, who recently left Iowa State. Butler's men have signed Finnish guard Samu Adler. Matt Fitzpatrick choked at the 18th at the RBC Heritage at Hilton Head Sunday, but then birdied the 19th to win a playoff against the number 1 player in the world, Scottie Scheffler. Fitzpatrick's 13th career win and second at the RBC. This week, the PGA goes to Miami for the Cadillac Championships at Trump Doral. The Indy Ignite won a showdown of the 2 best teams in the Women's Professional Volleyball League, the MLV, beating the Dallas Pulse 25-17, 25-18, 22-25, and 25-21 Sunday evening at a sold-out Fishers Event Center. Indy now has the best record in the MLV at 19-5. The Ignite will spend the next week on the road. They will go to Orlando to face the 10-13 Valkyries at 7 Thursday. Then 3 o'clock Sunday in Atlanta to face the Vibe. Their next home game is Friday, May 1st against the San Diego Mojo. My friend in Ignite PA, Aaron Pittman, previewed the match on Sunday night, and I'll have him continue to come on this show and talk some Ignite as the playoffs approach. The Indy 11 and Birmingham Legion FC played to a 2-2 tie late Sunday in Alabama. College baseball, Purdue completed a sweep of Ohio State in Columbus with a 6-2 win Sunday. The Boilermakers scored 28 runs in the 3-game series. They've now won 7 consecutive Big Ten games and are up to third place at 15-6. And IU took the rubber match against Abilene Christian 5-4. In college softball, IU couldn't complete a sweep in Iowa City, taking a 4-2 loss to the Hawkeyes. And Butler scored 5 times in the 6th and 3 times in the 7th to beat Georgetown 9-5. Now you know everything I know about Central Indiana sports. We'll be back tomorrow. Of course, the NFL draft is Thursday. We'll have more on that on this show throughout the week. We'll probably also have a special NFL draft preview, and we'll definitely have an NFL draft reaction following the game. The draft, following the draft. Also, our IU report this week is going to be talking about the Hoosiers in the draft. Of course, Fernando Mendoza expected to be the number 1 overall pick, but several Hoosiers, a record number of Hoosiers going to be taken in that draft. That'll be the main focus of this show and the Central Indiana Sports Report for the remainder of the week. We'll have a Colts report for you on Tuesday, talking about what the Colts should do in the draft. Thanks for listening. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.